Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Niko House, and I'm the host of the political radio show Mi Casa es Su Casa. Today, we're going to cover a controversial topic. But first, I would like to ask you all to donate to our One Follow $1 campaign. A campaign started by myself, Tim Black, H.A. Goodman, and Hard Bastard. We are almost to our goal of $1,000 for the month, that's absolutely amazing. I'm so glad that there are so many people who are going to be willing to support independent media when the mainstream media is refusing to bring the truth. What we're going to talk about today is controversial. And to be totally honest with you, I was not going to cover this topic. Not necessarily not cover it. I would have covered it to the degree of, okay, maybe, the death is suspicious. But over the last couple of days, the death has went from being considered suspicious to, okay, now we have to talk about this because of what's not necessarily because of what I found, but because of what hasn't been found, what's become almost impossible for myself and others to find. I was going to be like pretty much almost everybody else and chalk this up as a conspiracy theory, possibly out of paranoia because I didn't want to see any backlash, to be totally honest. But you know what? I was actually inspired. I was inspired by the Detroit News because they actually did an article covering the suspicious and mysterious circumstances of Chris Cornwell's death. Not Chris Cornell. It's not Chris Cornwell, Chris Cornell. But I was very surprised that they covered it, and they covered it, all the circumstances, in great detail. And I was, I just really got back to thinking like, wow, you know what, we have a responsibility as journalists, and whether or not the people love it, the establishment loves it, or otherwise, we don't have to necessarily suggest anything, but we do need to reveal the truth so that people can start using their brains and thinking critically. And they can only do that if they have all the facts. So you know what we're going to do today? We're going to talk about what we do know, and we're going to talk about what we do not know about Chester Bennington's death. To be totally honest, this entire thing has started to freak me out. There are a few problems, a few holes. And the first hole actually starts with Snopes. Right, go figure at this point. Now, as we all know, Snopes has been known to automatically discredit anything that they deem as conspiracy theory. Okay, whatever, that's their gig. But they literally did not even wait 24 hours. Now, they said that, Chris Cornell and Chester Bennington died the rumor that Chris Cornell and Chester Bennington died because they were going to reveal a pedophile ring. It's false. They hadn't even investigated for more than 24 hours. The information surrounding both deaths hadn't even came out in totality yet, but they automatically deemed this as false. That is irresponsible journalism. There was no investigative process. They just, copied and pasted a bunch of articles. But once I saw that, of course, when Snopes says something is automatically false, I've seen them do this with Bernie Sanders. I've seen them do this with the DNC. I've seen them do this with Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Donna Brazile, WikiLeaks, Julian Assange. I've seen them do it so many times, and now my inclination is to, okay, I need to dig deeper. There are a few circumstances surrounding Chris's death that made me raise an eyebrow. Now, the investigators claim that there was no gap in time from the time that Chris Cornell's bodyguard was in the room, the time Chris Cornell talked to his wife, and then the time Chris Cornell's bodyguard returned back to the room after Chris Cornell told him, I told the bodyguard, hey, I heard some suspicious noises. I would like for you to go check on Chris. So Chris's bodyguard left at about 11:30. Chris talked to his wife at about 11:35. Chris's wife heard some racket in the background, and what transpired afterwards was a 40-minute gap between the time that Chris's bodyguard came back to the room. Now, Chris's bodyguard actually said that before he left, he actually gave Chris some pills, 2 pills actually. for anxiety. He said it was pretty normal. However, Assistant Wayne County Medical Examiner Theodore Brown said that upon a visual examination, there were no pills found in the stomach, according to his report. But there's no indication in the toxicology report that Cornell's stomach was tested to determine the level of drugs there, since only a blood sample was cited, which means that they're making a claim that there were no pills in his stomach, but the bodyguard is saying, and the bodyguard has no reason to lie, saying I only gave him 2 pills as he requested, obviously because it's a normal thing because Chris had anxiety. But this isn't coming from me. This isn't coming from some blogger. This is coming from the Assistant Wayne County Medical Examiner, another examiner. That's a huge hole, don't you think? And that's just one of many in Chris Cornell's, but that was the one that stuck out to me the most. That shows me that this investigation was rushed. It was automatically called a suicide, and we have no idea why. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Chris and Vicky Cornell Foundation for Neglected Children is a real thing. It really happened, and they actually were traveling the country in specific areas that were subject to high rates of human trafficking just months before Chris Cornell's death. This is a fact. This is verifiable. They raised over $250,000, where 8% went to the children, and then the rest went to the concert and things like that, because he was doing charity concerts in order to raise the money. So that's a big hole. That's a huge hole. I mean, the cell phone was determined as not being confiscated and not being found at first, but then it was brought up openly, and so the investigators had to actually comment, and they said, "Oh, we actually just gave it back to the wife. That's why we didn't report it as confiscated. We just never kept it. We never used it as evidence." If you're investigating a death which has extremely suspicious circumstances, why are you not in keeping the phone for evidence to determine maybe if there was something to do with it? Perhaps. So we do know for a fact that Chester Bennington's best friend, the man who had Chester Bennington's godchildren, has extremely suspicious circumstances surrounding his death. And now we talk about Chester Bennington, whose entire situation is insane. It's insane because the amount of digging I've had to do to get the facts that we have right now took entirely too much effort. If I wanted to look up Chris Cornell's family, it was relatively easy. If I wanted to look up any other superstar's family, it was relatively easy. I did this yesterday just to say, I'm like, man, is it this easy to find everybody's situation? But with Chester Bennington, it was brutal trying to look up this information. I had to dig and dig and dig, and a lot of things I came upon while looking for other information. Let's start from the beginning. Chester Bennington was known as a child who was molested, but in Heavy.com, they say it was by an older male friend. In Wikipedia, they say it was by an older male friend. However, and we'll get to that in a second, that was not the case. Chester Bennington's father, Lee Russell Bennington, also happened to be a police officer who worked with children who were abused. He specialized in this. Chester Bennington also was claimed to have half siblings. I'm going to explain why that doesn't sound like that was necessarily the case either. There is huge gaps in information about Chester Bennington from the year he was born to 7. I've yet to be able to find his hospital, but we have somebody working on that right now. We've yet to be able to find the hospital that his mother worked, or that he was born in. We found the hospital that his mother worked in. However, his mother, who was supposedly married to Lee Russell Bennington, doesn't appear to have ever had the same last name as Lee Russell Bennington. The marriage certificate of those two cannot be found. Pictures of Susan Elaine Johnson, Chester Bennington's alleged mother, cannot be found. And yet we're being told that these are his biological parents. However, Chester Bennington himself actually said in an interview, Chester Bennington himself, and this is what is crazy to me, because all of these news articles have been reporting this, saying that it was one person, one man. However, it was not one man. It was not with the Bennington family, and we have no idea who he was living with before he moved in with Lee Russell Bennington and Johnson. He said himself that it was by multiple people, not in his current family. He said in himself that he was in a quote unquote broken family home, so he thought that it was normal for them to act like that. That there was a bunch of crazy things going on around him. He said himself that the home was broken. However, we know that Chester Bennington was molested at 7. Bennington, Lee Russell Bennington, and Susan Elaine Johnson did not divorce until he was 11. At that point, his brothers and sisters were around him, and according to Bennington himself, neither of them molested him. And he was molested at 7. And then another weird twist, Lee Russell Bennington was given full custody of Chester Bennington. And that was extremely untraditional. It's untraditional now for the father to get full custody of a mother's biological child, especially when the father is working double shifts. And we can't say, oh, well, maybe Elaine or Susan Elaine could not take care of the child because she was supposedly a nurse, so she was making a legitimate income. Unless perhaps that's not his child, or not her child. Unless perhaps on the adoption papers, maybe her name is, maybe Bennington was adopted officially by Lee Russell, and her name isn't on the paperwork, and that's why it was awarded full custody. But we know for a fact that all the siblings were there during Lee Russell Bennington double shifts, because he was working double shifts in the police department, and you don't work double shifts to take care of 2 people. Obviously, his family members were still present. His kids were still there, at least 2 to 3 of them. Now, Chester's older brother, I know, is almost 6 or 7 years. Brian Bennington is 6 or 7 years older than Chester. We also know that Linkin Park somehow ended up in Haiti. In fact, you can see a picture where they posed with Bill Clinton, and they were given a grant for a recycling initiative in Haiti. Now, my question to you is, if any of you have followed the Clinton Foundation, if any of you has followed anything about Haiti, understand something. You don't get anything out of the foundation without giving in substantial numbers. 1. 2, you don't operate any initiative as a third party from another country, especially the United States, without going through the Clinton Foundation. And if you don't donate money, you have to know somebody. That picture was taken in 2014. The initiative, the recycling initiative, was started in 2014. Now, there has been rumors that this could possibly be John Podesta's bastard child, and that is not something I've thrown out. There's no reason to. I saw a facial recognition, and I'll post the YouTube link below. I saw a facial recognition live where they did a side-to-side face, 75% familiarity. They were 75% similar. That is insane. John Podesta also was not married at the time that Chester Bennington was born to his current wife. John Podesta also does not have any children currently that we know about. I encourage you all to keep digging and dig deep, because there is so much information about this case that we do not know, and it's being kept from us. I am certain of it at this point. Like I said, I wasn't going to report on this, but the Detroit News, shout out to you guys for doing the right thing, because they inspired me and they reminded me why we should be reporting on this. This was not a suicide. I can say that with certainty and confidence, that this was not a suicide. They both dealt with human traffickers, or victims of human trafficking. Chris had a foundation dedicated to this. They were best friends. And you don't think that. And there's nothing else, by the way, and you can go look this up. There's nothing else with Linkin Park by dealing with the Clintons and the Clinton Foundation and dealing in Haiti after they left. Which means that there's a good and strong possibility they might have saw something that they do not like. They might have heard some things. They might have seen and heard rumors. And because they don't deal with each other at all. Next thing you know, 2014 is when this happened, when Linkin Park was in Haiti. The next thing you know, the foundation that Chris and his wife started, happened. And then a little less than 3 years later, we're hearing this, and then they're dead. Both of them. Within a month and a half span. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. And I'm going to post my Facebook link below. I'm going to post my Twitter link below. I'm also going to post my email. Please, if you have any connection to this, if you have any more information on this, if you're able to find the marriage certificate of Susan Elaine Johnson and Lee Russell Bennington, please send it to me. If you're able to find the birth certificate of Chester Bennington, please send it to me. If you're able to find out if those siblings are his step siblings or are legitimately his half siblings, please let me know. If you're able to find information about his prior family or adoption certificates, let me know. Thank you all so much for watching. Please donate to our One Follow $1 campaign. And always remember, find your balance. Peace.